Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to talk about smart meters, 5G, geoengineering, and basically the legal steps that will be required to take anybody to court, whether it's for this purpose or something else. It'll all apply. What we're going to go through today briefly is the outline for what's required to go to court. I'm going to be using Ontario court forms. If you live in a different area or district, your forms will change. Basic concept is the same. And this can be used, like I say, with chemtrails or with 5G or any other legal proceeding you may have. One thing I do that's a little different than most people is I actually send the people a notice. And what's in the notice? There's a draft one in the Facebook board, and you can download that and look at it. But it's not the completed form. It's just something that people will get an idea. And what I generally do is I try and give them a notice to the party that I have a problem with. So hopefully they'll fix the problem and I don't have to go to court. But if they don't want to fix the problem, then we're going to take the next step. This meeting is going to go through the process. If you've sent the letter and you've given them the 35 days or whatever you want to give them, you got to give them a reasonable amount of time. I usually give them 35 days because under the Uniform Postal Union, the rules say that after 5 days after you've mailed something, they're supposed to have gotten it. So if I give them 35 days from the date of the letter, in essence, I've given them 30 days to do something, which is pretty standard. So that's what I do. And the process we're going to go through, well, I'm going to talk about the court forms that are required, assuming they did not answer your paperwork and they did not ask for an extension, because sometimes they will actually ask for an extension. But if they didn't do that and you're done waiting for your 35 days, then rather than do a notice of liability, which is what we're doing, and then sending them a notice of default and then eventually it'll be a notice of default. At that point, some people have actually taken the steps to remove their meter, which does not work. You end up getting charged with violating some section of the Electricity Act in your state or province, and then you got a criminal record. So rather than do this, what I do is I give them the notice, and then once they don't follow the instructions in the notice or give me some sort of correspondence back, they just ignore it, the next step is to go to court. So I'm going to go through a couple things here because you may or may not know if what we're talking about with smart meters or geoengineering is actually going to relate to you. So the first thing we got to look at is what happens if you're stuck with the RF transmission, like from a cell tower or smart meter. This chart gives you what the potential side effects are. You may have headaches, you may have depression, anxiety, insomnia where you can't sleep, you're always tired, weakness, memory loss, dizziness. You might be irritable for no apparent reason. You might feel tingling or weird sensations. You may run a fever. You may have all kinds of things. But this is just a general overview of what may happen. You may have respiratory problems. You may wake up anxious, not know what's going on. You may even have temporary blindness. So if that affects you, then potentially you are being subject to RF. We're going to assume that you are because that's the purpose of our talk tonight. And if you have any of the symptoms that are on this here chart, then you may want to look into it a little further and see if you can confirm whether or not this is it. Now, one of the real problems with exposure to RF, which is also known as microwave radiation sickness, is you will have flu-like symptoms. You may have high blood pressure. You may have change in cholesterol. You may have a change in heartbeat. You may have extremely high or extremely low blood pressure. And if you get away from this RF, it may actually solve the problem, provided you weren't exposed to it for too long. So if anything on this chart fits you, then you may want to check a little further. The next thing we're going to have to worry about, okay, we have to send a letter with respect to this, because one of the problems when we go into court is the judge is probably going to ask you, did you try to mediate with your opponent? And it's a requirement in law. It's been a requirement in law for about 15 years. So if we write a letter to the cell tower company, we're telling them that their cell tower actually was never installed right. In fact, there's a court case in Washington, D.C. It was gone through the court 3 times because the first time it was appealed, and the second time it was appealed, the third time it was appealed. every time it came back and it said the cell tower has to conform with the safety study. And if the safety study isn't done, the cell tower can't be used. Well, I got news for you. The safety study was never done because the safety study has to claim and show that the cell tower is harmless. Well, they can't do that. I mean, I've got documents that go back to 1942 when they developed radar that proves that the frequency 2.4 gigahertz or any multiple thereof, it causes a problem. So there's no way they're going to get out of that. Okay, you might want to send one to the ministry in charge of education for your state or province, because they put cell towers usually next to large places where people congregate, schools, shopping malls, large, parks. So if we send one to the minister in charge of education, you're telling them that you're potentially harming the students and or the staff. Now, there's one gentleman I know that, went into a school and he actually talked to a secretary, and the secretary ends up having cancer. Well, guess what's outside? Cell tower. You might want to do the same thing for the ministry in charge of energy, which is your electric company or your gas company, because the meter transmits RF signals, and they don't just transmit one or two. And they may give you an argument that say, well, it only transmits, 4 times a day, or it's only 1 watt. Well, that may be true, but if you've got 30 meters transmitting the same garbage for all over the whole street, you're getting subject to that thing 30, 40, 50 times a day. And the studies and tests that I've done actually proves that each meter goes off about every 3 or 4 seconds. They'll change it if you complain, and it's usually 4 times a day. You may also want to send a letter off to the Minister of Health, because they have an obligation to make sure that people aren't exposed to harmful RF or harmful side effects. You may want to talk to your local state representative. Patrick Colback used to be the guy for Michigan. Here it would be Doug Ford. So you may want to talk to them or send them a message. The other thing we want to do is we want to go to the meter manufacturer. We want to tell them that their meters don't conform to the FCC regulation. In fact, they exceed it. We can test that with an RF meter. But the other thing that we don't normally think of is that the meter is actually, due to the way it's built, transmitting dirty electricity. And I'll get into why that is later. But the gas meter does it, the water meter does it, the electric meter does it. You also have a right to the municipality, okay, because the municipality has an obligation. Like you have an obligation to them to pay taxes, or at least they think you do. And so because you're paying taxes, you are in effect in a contract. And part of your contract is you can demand a safe place to live. Now, some people may be in a rental unit, an apartment. And so they think, well, there's nothing I can do. The meter's on the side of the building. No, under the Landlord-Tenant Act, you're entitled to a safe place to live. So you have to send a letter to the property owner. You may also want to send a letter to the school board, because if the school board gets a letter, okay, they have an obligation to all the schools in the district. And then what you might want to also do is send a letter to the principal, because if the principal finds out, then the principal is the person in charge of the school. He's also responsible for all the students, he or she. So if you send a letter to the principal and they now are informed of this dangerous tower sitting outside, they may not even know it's dangerous. But now that they know about it, they can't plead ignorant. You can sue them if you have to. But they may turn around and go contact the school board. And if enough principals do that, they may turn around and the school board may actually contact the Minister of Health or the Minister of Education and say, hey, wait a minute. We're informed that these meters are bad news. Okay? The Secretary of State in the U.S. is in charge of all your laws. So therefore, if you notify the Secretary of State, they can't plead, ignorant to the fact either. And you also want to send a letter off to the Prime Minister or President in the United States, because then the whole state is fixed, because the Prime Minister or President is responsible for the entire state. So you've actually closed all the doors. Nobody can play, I didn't know, or, was unaware of it. No, we're going to send them the document. Now, if you take account of this, we got, all these different people. The documents that I proposed to provide for people, if they stuck together, which unfortunately they didn't, is about 300 pages per. So you'd have 300 for this one, 300 for the next one, so on and so forth. So you end up with quite a few letters you have to send out registered mail. I'm going to go through the process of how you do that. because once you know how to do it, then you can use it the next time. And when we go to the next set of people here, this was for wireless technology, okay? But we got another problem. What if we want to talk about geoengineering, okay? Then we want to go to the companies involved in geoengineering or weather modification. There's a whole list of them on the Facebook page, Air Canada, whoever. There's a whole slew of them. And we want to talk to the minister in charge of health for your state or province, because what that chemical cocktail does, when it's dumped in the air, you breathe that in, okay? And what aluminum and barium, copper, strontium, whatever other stuff they got in there, lead, mercury, who knows? What it does is it affects your health. It affects your respiratory problem. And I've been asked repeatedly over the last week, well, is 5G connected to sickness, to this virus? Now, I can't say for sure that it is, but what I can tell you is if you breathe in enough aluminum particulates and whatever that chemtrail cocktail is, it's weakening your immune system. Okay, then they turn around and they introduce a virus, which weakens your immune system. And then they turn around and they want to bring 5G in here. Well, your immune system's already weakened. So if it's weakened enough and you're one of the older people, you're at a lot higher risk to have medical problems. So they're all interconnected, because if you mess with the immune system, that's your body's ability to rebuild itself or repair itself. And one thing that we know from medical studies is that if you have insomnia and you're kept awake because of the dirty electricity or because of the RF, your body doesn't get to sleep, and your body repairs itself, and it generates melatonin, and it repairs itself only while you're sleeping. But if you're never really sleeping because you're exposed to dirty electricity or RF, your body never gets to repair itself, and that's why people get run down. Once they get run down and fatigued, then they get sick, and of course that knocks out the immune system again. So there's a common thread here, okay? So what we want to do is we want to solve all this problem, because potentially each one of these people on this list or on the previous list could be held liable, both personally and or professionally. And what that means is you can go after them privately and publicly, because an office does not make anything. I've often told people, how many cars did General Motors make last year? And the answer is none. Because if General Motors has a facility to make cars and nobody shows up for work, how many cars get built? None. They're made by the people. So what we want to do, and we're going to do this legally, where we can bind them both in both capacities, the company they work for and them themselves. And we're going to do that very carefully. So the first thing we got to do is we have to send them our notice. So we write up our letter, whatever it says in it, and we want to quote laws and contracts and or reports that prove what we're saying is correct. Because what we're going to do later is we're going to actually use that information in a court of law. Now, if we don't give proper documentation to support our claim that's verified that they can go check and go research, then it's frivolous stuff and they'll just throw it out. They'll put a motion in court to have it stricken from the record. But if it's actually documented and well backed up, there's no problem using that information if we do it right. And I'm going to go through it today. I'm going to go through how we do it right. Because if we don't do it right and there's a technicality, your case will go down the tubes. We don't want that to happen. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, if we're in Canada, we have a sticker. This is the sticker part of it, half of it. And there's another half that has a barcode on it, which you end up sticking on your parcel. Now, I don't know if you guys can see my little mouse here, but there's a number here, RN093286762CA. If you're going to send your parcel or your letter by Canada Post, you're going to need that number, RN093286762CA. That's your registered mail number. And what you're going to do, this now looks slightly different than this, and they actually make them, there's a little box on it that says signature, and of course you just make sure that's checked. And what that does is that they have to sign for it, so they can't say they didn't get it. And then you can trace it, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So if you're going to use Canada Post, if you're in Canada, that's what you use. Or if you can use FedEx or Purelator or DHL. If you're in the United States, you're going to have the same thing. Only here we have a different number, RR000003-130US. Okay? That will be your registered mail number if you choose to use the United States Postal Service to send registered mail. And if you look on the bottom, there's a link down here, https://tools.usps.com. That whole thing there. If you go to that link and you punch in this number, RR000003130 US, and press enter, it will trace the package and tell you where it is in the system and what it's been signed for. Okay? The same thing with Canada Post. Okay, the previous number here, you would go to Canada Post and you type in that RN093, all that stuff. You will then be able to trace that package and find out if it was delivered, if it was delayed, and who signed for it. In Canada Post, you'll have to know the destination postal code. Okay, for this one, it's HC3 3A8. That will be a number. You'll need that postal code, and that will give you actually a confirmation signature. So that's very important, because if you know who signed for it, they can't say they didn't get it. Okay, in the U.S., it may be slightly different, but you can get confirmation signature. Now, if you do it another way, you can do it through certified mail receipt. This is a U.S. Certified mail receipt, and here again, you can see the common denominator here. We have a number. Okay, that number is very important, and this is the tracking that you'd use to track it, the tools.ups.com. Or if you don't like to do it that way, okay, we're going to go a different way if we have to. This thing here, I told you on a Canada Post one, there's a barcode. This is the barcode. It's a different one. It doesn't match the one that was there, but it would have if we'd actually done it for real purposes. And there, the number for this is RT191, and you can read the rest of it. That goes on the envelope, and then you would keep the other half, which looks like this. And what I used to do is actually just stick that on my own letter, and I didn't have to fill it all out. And then what I would do after I got the confirmation is I would scan it all in. It would be a PDF file and done. But now that we've got that part done, if we go to upstracking.com, this is what the screen looks like. And you would punch the number in there. It says enter up to a 35 tracking number separated by commas. If you turn around and do it a different way, Canada Post, it looks like this. Same thing. It just shows you what the screen looks like, so you'll be somewhat familiar with it. And then if you do it through UPS, that's another way to do it. You will have a different tracking number. In this case, it would be the 1Z379, and you can read the number up there. So that register, all those numbers are important. And if you want to track it, there's a UPS tracking, at least for Canada. The US one may look slightly different. And you just punch in the tracking number and confirm where it went or where it is in the system. Okay? Now, based on that, we get to our actual letter. This is where it all comes back into play. Okay, up on top, this is the very same letter that you have that's in the file. If you want to look through it, you can look through it. Your name, address, phone number, postal code all go up on top. And then wherever you're sending it, and you put here name in lowercase, name in uppercase. And what I mean by this is you spell the name out like you would normally write your name. So John would be capital J and then small O-H-N, and then Doe, capital D, small O-E. Name in uppercase, and you type it all out in uppercase letters. You put their position, whoever they are, treasurer, or whoever you're sending it to, CEO, their address, the date, and then that registered mail number that I've been harping on, right here where it says registered mail, you would put in that registered mail number, okay? Because what you're wanting to do is you want to confirm that the letter corresponds to the one that you mailed. And if they both, the registered mail numbers match, the court will accept that. Now, we put something interesting on here. Cease and desist notice, and notice of liability for trespass and assault with unsafe and unlawful wireless technology. Assault does not mean necessarily that I beat you up. Okay, assault can be anything. And so when they subject you to wireless technology and it's causing you bodily harm, you could actually put assault and bodily harm if you wanted to. But assault is a valid claim that you can use in a court of law. And it says unsafe and unlawful wireless technology, and the letter goes through all the reasons why. I will go through that letter in the next call. I don't care about the letter right now. I just want you to know how to go about doing this. Okay? And then it's got some neat verbiage down here. It says, notice to agent is notice to principal, and notice to principal is notice to agent. What the heck does that really mean? Notice to agent means I'm sending a letter to somebody at a company, and I don't care who it is, whoever that person is, whatever position they're in. So let's say I'm sending it to the CEO. Notice to CEO is notice to principal. Well, the principal is the person, okay, the actual live flesh and blood. And then I got notice to principal, which is the actual live flesh and blood, is equal to the same thing as the notice to agent. That's what this means. So a lot of times what happens is, if you send some kind of letter like this and it's pretty powerful and got some weight behind it, what they'll do is they'll take John Doe that worked in the in the finance department, if that's your problem, and they'll move him over somewhere else and they'll put Susie Smith in there, and then they'll try and escape out, get out from underneath it. Well, they can't do that. That's why we got this notice to agent is notice to principal, notice to principal is notice to agent. So I don't care who they put in there. They can put an Easter Bunny in there. The Easter Bunny is still liable for the problem. I don't care how many times they shift people, that person is still liable. That's what that does. So now that we've got that done, our letter will be written, and we're going to go through part of how we do our legal paperwork. Okay? Once we send that document out, the letter, they already now know that something bad's happening, right? And so you gave them 30 days, let's just say, to do something. Well, they're probably going to ignore your letter. I hope they don't, because if they don't ignore your letter and they actually want to do something properly, they will acknowledge what you tell them if it's legitimate and backed up by claims and papers that can be verified, and hopefully they'll do this out of court. That would be ideal. But if they don't, unfortunately, you're going to do the paperwork while you're waiting for these guys to respond for the next 30 days or whenever it is, and you're going to start doing your court paperwork. And we're going to go over that court paperwork right now. Okay, the basics of it. We're not going to go into great detail. We'll do that in a different call. But we have a problem, a major problem, because once we've sent that letter, which looks like this, okay, and you mail it to them, you basically opened a time bomb. That's why it says time is running out. In every court that there is in the world, United States, Canada, Australia, it doesn't matter, there's a thing called a statute of limitations, okay, and that's what we're going to get into. In Ontario, the defendant has 20 days to give a statement of defense to the plaintiff or the plaintiff's lawyer, or file a copy of a statement of defense in court. Giving a copy of the document to the other side is called service. Okay, pay attention to that, because we're going to really go on to that after. And they got to give a court a copy of it called a filing. You can get an extra 10 days if you have to. If they want an extra 10 days, they can file a notice of intent to defend. So they got a whole 30 days to respond. If you remember when I said when we sent the letter, I gave them 35 days because I'm allowing 5 days for the letter to get there and then 30 days to do something, right? You don't want to give them like 3 days because they don't have sufficient time. Okay, so now the court, if they're going to answer this, they got to put their court paperwork together. It has to be done right, because if it's not done on the right forms, the court will not accept it. And you can go round and round and round trying to get stuff filed. It's just not worth the hassle. Do it right the first time. Because if they find a technicality, they can motion to strike. If you keep filing frivolous documents, like more than one for the same purpose, they can throw the thing out and say, if this is frivolous, the guy filed 8 copies of the same thing. And then you look like a real idiot and you probably lose your case. So we got to know what documents we're going to need to go into court. Okay. The first document we're going to have is going to look very, very similar to that letter, except it'll be on the proper form. But you need a statement of claim with a backer sheet. The only time you don't need a backer sheet is if you're in Alberta, because you no longer need backer sheets in Alberta. Every other court that I've ever dealt with requires a backer sheet for every document you put in there. You notice it says statement of claim with backer sheet, affidavit with backer sheet, affidavit of service with backer sheet, supporting documents or pictures, which are your exhibits, and that's attached to your affidavit. It has a backer sheet. And then you've got a motion, and it has a backer sheet. Why do they put the backer sheet in there? The honest answer is they're too stupid to turn the document over and figure out what's on the front. I'm not kidding you. But anyway, so you always got to put the backer sheet in. So what I generally do is I draft up a document for the certain cause that I want it for, and then I just change it every time I need a different backer sheet. Makes it easier. So just save a Word copy or Open Office or whatever program you use to do it. Now, the first thing we're going to deal with is a statement of claim, because they didn't answer our letter in the 30 days, and we don't want to run out of time pursuant to our statute of limitations. The statute of limitations to file any claim, and I think every court that I've checked in with lately, is 2 years. Well, once you've sent that letter and they have it, you've got 2 years to put a claim in court, and if you don't do it, they could actually motion the court and say, I want this thing stricken, It's statute barred because it's outside the statute of limitations. Now you're going to say, well, I had EHS or I was affected, for 6 years. Yeah, but 6 years ago, you didn't know what was causing the problem. Once you figure out what causes the problem, okay, now you've narrowed it down to, I don't know, complex fluorescent light bulbs and a smart meter in a tower that's parked 3 feet from your house. Okay, so you narrow it down to that. You've done some research. You got some books, whatever. And you sent them the letter. So now that you've sent them the letter, you can't plead stupid and say, I didn't know. But they can't also prove when you knew. So the time clock happens when you mail that registered letter out. So now that we've got that figured out, we file a statement of claim. Okay, and it's the same in every system. The form will look different, but the context and the principle is the same. Here's what a statement of claim looks like, at least for Ontario. Now, on the top of this thing, it's got a court file number. Now, when you go to a court and you want to start an action, you are the plaintiff. You are the one making the claim. You're the plaintiff. That's the legal term for it. You're the guy on top. Okay? You're also the moving party. Very important. Okay? And there's a reason we got to remember we're the moving party. It's quite simple, but we'll get there. So you're going to go to court and you'll have to pay a court filing fee. And you'll file your statement of claim. You probably can't file your affidavit at the same time. We used to be able to do that. They went and changed that rule, so that screwed that up. But the court file number here is CV and then some number. And CV stands for civil court. That's what the C and then just figure ILVL, civil claim, and then it gives this. And you can sometimes figure out the date and whatever from this, but you don't care. They'll give you that number. Every time you put a document in court, every time, you're going to have to put this court file number on the top corner. If you leave it out, they don't know what file it belongs to, and they're certainly lazy. They're not going to go look it up for you. So you put this in there, and then between, and it says this person is plaintiff, so that would be you, or it might be you and your wife, might be you, your wife, and your kid. It might be the whole damn school. If they don't do something, you could actually put an action in on behalf of the school. So you would list the students of the school, or if you get too many names, usually you list, John Doe, Jane Doe, Susan Smith, Mark Smith, and others. And your and others can be a list of 100 people for all we care. We don't care. And then the defendant, who's the defendant in this operation? The defendant is the person you sent the letter to. Okay, so whether it's the power company or whether it's the municipality or whether it's the meter manufacturer, I don't care. But that's who gets listed here. Now, this thing is not exactly correct because it says fresh statement of claim. This is what happens when you screw up a statement of claim and you got to put a new one in. So normally it won't have the word fresh there, but it'll say statement of claim. All this here verbiage that's in here, all of that stuff stays on the top of the form. And it's telling the other side what form they need. They need Form 18A, pursuant to the civil rules of court, and they got to respond within 20 days from the date when they get this thing. So now, remember I said the clock's ticking? Well, now they've got 20 days to turn around and do something with this. And if you're outside the province or territory, then they get extra time because you have to allow extra time for the mail to get there. And it's 40 days. You may want to serve this document yourself, okay? Or you may want to have what's called a private bailiff serve it. Private bailiff's going to charge you about $75 to $100 to do it. If you do it yourself, what you do, okay, take notes here because this is important. What you do is you actually have 2 copies that you bring there. They're both identical, okay, exactly the same. And what you do is you have them sign one of them, okay, and you keep that one. Or have them sign them both, but then get one of them back. You want the one that's signed because if they ever say they never got it, you can prove they did because how did you get the signature? Okay, so once you file this document, okay, and you give it to somebody, if you're going after a law firm, don't give it to the darn secretary. You make sure you give it to a lawyer. It's a requirement of law, so do what I tell you. Don't give it to the secretary and say, well, I gave it to Susie Smith. She was at the front desk. No, if you have to, make an appointment to talk to a lawyer. I don't care. Give it to a lawyer if you're going to a law office. If you're going to serve it to a company, find out somebody that works in the company, some director, board of directors, somebody, okay? As long as it's served as somebody that should be an authority. In that case, it can be the secretary. So the form looks like this is page 1 or part of the page. The next part of the page is this other stuff. And here it has the rest of this verbiage, which has to stay there. And this is the address of the court office, okay, 393 University Avenue. If you live somewhere, that's going to match your area, Okay, it'll be slightly different on a different form if you're not in Ontario. And then it tells you who we served it to. Well, holy geez, here we served it to one company and another company and another company. Okay, so there's all their addresses. So now the court knows where it was sent. Okay, good enough. Now the actual claim, and you go through all of your claims, whatever you're trying to claim. We're not going to go through this because it's not related to what we're doing. But you write your claim up, whatever it is. Now, in your claim, these people had put a definition in here because they're defining certain things. So if you want to say EHS, and somebody doesn't know what the heck EHS is, so you would put EHS as electrohypersensitivity, and you can actually reference a couple of different documents, books, medical reports, biomed reports, I don't care. You can put it in there, okay? So that's like here, they got CJA, means Court of Justice Act, RSO, whatever. So you can do the same type of deal here. That's why I left that in there, okay? If you want CPA, means Class Proceedings Act, because this is actually for class action lawsuit. Now, if we want to go further, okay, after we define our claim, eventually in our document, usually it's near the end, but in this case they put it in the middle, I don't care. Relief sought. What do you want the court to do? What do you actually want them to do? Now, in reality, we don't want to sue the power company and bankrupt them. Might be a way to get rid of the meters. But one of the things we want them to do is we want them to actually remove the meter for everybody within the jurisdiction of the power company, Palmetto Electric or DTE, or for us it's Ontario Hydro, Sask Power, whatever. Because if they only remove your meter and replace it with an analog one, you're still getting radiated from the good neighbor policy, and your neighbors are polluting the air and you get to put up with it. No, you want all of the meters replaced in that area, or at least on your street. Okay, if it's a cell tower, well, guess what? Same thing. You want the cell tower shut down until a proper safety assessment study has been done. And it'll never be done because they're not safe. So that shuts down the cell tower. Okay, then we can go through overview of the action. Now what this is it'll actually describe kind of like the backstory of how we got to where we are. Okay, so that's when you can say I read this book and I've realized that this relates to me, and eventually I wrote a letter and they didn't respond to my letter in 30 days, and that's why I'm in front of the court. So now you've explained to the court why you're here. What are you doing here? Why are you here? What do you want? It's all laid out, okay? And then it talks about the parties and who's who and all that crap. We can do all that. This is actually a fairly complicated, but I gave it to you so it has all the points in it, okay? And it says here, okay, Dale purchased unit 3607. Well, you can say I moved in on such and such a date, or they installed the meter on such and such a date, and then you had health problems or whatever your case may be. Now, when you do all this stuff, okay, this thing just goes on because there's lots of stuff. Now it says facts supporting the class member's claim against the defendant. Well, here you can list all the reports or all the different exhibits or anything you have, medical reports, for joint pain or menstrual periods changing, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, vision problems, dizziness, whatever. It can all be listed in here. We're going to list it in an affidavit with our report when we're done, okay? And if you want to call experts, it says here plaintiff's experts. You can call Dr. Sam Milham. You can call whoever, Dave Stetzer, if you're dealing with smart meters, dirty electricity. You can call your family doctor in, okay, as an expert witness. They have your report and they're trained. And, it carries on. Now, when we get to the end of this thing, okay, there's a summary, okay? The plaintiff will ask the court to, and then you're basically going to tell them what you want, what you're asking for. It's kind of like the same as the remedy sought. Why it's actually in there twice, that's the way they do it. It's kind of squirrely, but that's how they do stuff. Okay, I will help anybody that wants to write one of these things up, so don't get too alarmed about doing this because I can do it for you or do it with you. Okay, I won't do it for you exactly because I don't know your entire story, but I'll do it with you. Okay, and it says here, okay, the assessment, and then it talks about damages. Well, once your health's screwed up, and maybe you can't live in your house anymore because you're EHS positive and you can't even stand to be near electricity. I know a gal right now in frickin' Georgia, she lives in a shed because she can't be anywhere near electricity. She had a Bluetooth in her car, she had to tear her car apart. Because it burns. It's a burning sensation once you get really screwed up with it. But once you're done with all of this mess, okay, You have to document all this stuff. You can turn around and you can, ask for something reasonable. Don't ask for like $9 trillion. Ain't going to happen. Now, on the back of this court statement of claim, it looks like this, and it has to look like this if it goes in Ontario. Every place is different. And you'll notice on the one side here, it's actually sideways, and that's actually the way it's supposed to be put together, so that's why I left it that way. But you're going to note here there's a court file number. It's the same as the one on the front, and it's got all the mumbo-jumbo on the side here, which is your information. See, it says lawyer for the plaintiff. If you're the guy making the claim into court, you're the plaintiff. This is your information or your lawyer's information. Don't worry about the defendant. That's his problem. Okay? Now, when you do this, this is your claim. Typically, what they're going to ask for later on is they're going to ask for disclosure. Okay? But if you give them the statement of claim and then a couple of days later you file your documents, your affidavit with all your supporting evidence, and they have to link to the claims made within the statement of claim, all this other stuff that you did earlier, it has to link to all this. If it doesn't link to it, they're going to say, well, it's not related, and they're going to put a motion in to strike your document, and then you've lost your case. Okay, so that's to link to all that stuff. I will help anybody do this. It's fairly straightforward. Now, what may happen? If you didn't do it right, they're going to put in a document that looks like this thing. Okay? And it's not the same case, so don't worry about trying to line the numbers up. But it's a notice of motion, and it's a motion for whatever. If you don't do your document right, they're going to put a motion in here to have your documents stricken from the record. They may also put a motion in there to prevent you from amending your claim. But the reason I bring this whole document up, if they don't respond to your document within the 20 days that they're allowed, and they didn't ask for an extension, okay, on the 21st day or the 30th day, if you want to be nice to them, you're going to put a motion into court for summary judgment in your favor. And I can bet you right now, 99% of the people, if they do their paperwork right, will be putting a motion in for summary judgment in their favor. Once they get that document, okay, they can't serve you any evidence to the contrary of anything you've claimed. So their feet are screwed to the floor. That's the happiest day of my life, by the way, because when I put documents together, I usually do a fairly good job of it, and there's no way they can dispute my claim. So that's great. Once they can't answer it, I win by default. So we're done with this. Now, once we put in the motion for summary judgment, because they didn't respond, we then go back to the court, and we ask the court, we need a court date, an actual date to court, right? And when we go into court, they have no evidence if they didn't provide us anything, or they may have provided us some kind of response, in which case what we'll have to do before we get into court, we can set up a court date, because it's usually about 3 months out. What we'll do then, and we have to do this, we write them a letter, okay, fairly polite letter, asking them to mediate. What that means is we want to have a meeting with you and discuss our differences. Because maybe we go in there with 10 points, 10 claims. But because we could mediate, we can solve 5 of the problems. Well, that's great. If we can solve 5 of the problems, we only need Mommy the judge to help us with the 5 we can't figure out on our own. Okay? But because of the evidence we're going to put in there, I don't see how they can answer anything. But anyway, that's what will happen. If they haven't answered us, we put in a motion for summary judgment. We go get a court date, which will give us a date probably 3 months down the road. And if they haven't answered and done anything, we just walk in there, Your Honor, we're here for summary judgment. The defendant has not responded to my statement of claim, didn't ask for any additional time, and I did try and mediate, Your Honor, and the mediation was refused, or the mediation, we settled, half of our problems. So we only have to deal with 0.24, 6, 8, and 10. The rest of our problems are solved. Okay, the judge will only deal with 0.24, 6, 8, and 10 on your paperwork. That's how that works. So once we've got that done, of course, remember now, this is a motion, but it also has to have that backer sheet, just like your statement of claim did, just like your affidavit did. Well, a motion has to have that backer sheet too. And it, it looks something like this. Okay, that's not really, doesn't say, it says certificate for order, but it's the same thing. You just change the name of it. So that's why I say you can save one document and just keep altering it to do what you want. Now, one of the problems with is, once we serve each document to the other side, okay, every time we serve them with something, when we serve the statement of claim, we have to do what's called an affidavit of service. And what that is we turn around and fill out when we go there. let's say we're serving Susie Smith of Susie Smith Law Office. We'll go in there and we'll say we want to talk to Susie Smith, who's a lawyer, or we want to talk to the president of DTE Electric, or we want to talk to the CFO, but usually it's the president or somebody high up, CEO. We want to talk to them, and we serve them the paper. We ask them what their name is. We ask them to see their ID. Who are you? I'm giving this paperwork to you. Who are you? Because when you do this affidavit of service, you have to fill out the time, the date, and how did you identify this person. If they told you their name was John Snow and they were the CEO of DTE Electric, good enough. Write that down. Write down the time. I don't care if you write it on a sticky paper and then fill it out in your car 10 minutes later. I don't care. When I served paperwork to a law office in Toronto, I didn't even get to my car and they were already phoning saying, well, what the heck, what are you doing? What's going on? I'm sorry, you're being sued. What more do you want to know? They actually refused to meet with me, but I didn't care. I used that against them. But once we do this affidavit of service, okay, which looks like this for Ontario, okay, so you're going to put all your garbage up here, the court number and the court file number and all that, and then it asks you down here, where did you serve it? Place of business. Was it their office? Was it their house? And how did you identify them? This form has changed slightly, but it gets you the idea. Most of the people that are on this call aren't from Ontario, so. But when we want to do this affidavit of service, we fill it out, and guess what? We stick a backer sheet on it, and we go to the court, and we say, we've served John Snow of DTE Electric a statement of claim on this date, and this is how we identified them. They will charge you a fee because they will swear the document. And they'll ask you for your identification, and you swear this is to be true. You say yes. They'll look at your identification, make sure it's you. They'll tell you to sign it, and then they'll stamp it, and they'll file it in court. Now, you did that with a statement of claim. Then when you turn around and you file your affidavit, which is the next document we're going to get into, which is your actual facts. An affidavit is a book or a document that has only facts, okay? Not your opinion, not what you heard from John Smith down the street 3 miles. No. It's actual facts, what you can prove in a court of law by paper. Because if you can't prove it and you say, well, the neighbor told me and the neighbor's not here, that's called hearsay evidence. It's inadmissible and it'll be thrown out of court. So if you're going to get your neighbor to do it, you get your neighbor to write an affidavit, and guess what? Your neighbor shows up in court. Because if your neighbor has problems, right, maybe they want to make a claim too, or maybe they want to act as your witness. Well, you're going to bring them to court, and the reason you bring them to court is so that if the other side wants to question them for any reason, wants to discuss it with them in the court of law, they have to freaking be there. If they aren't there, they can put a motion in to strike. Then your evidence goes down the toilet. We don't want to do that. But once we get this affidavit filed, the next thing we're going to do is file the affidavit, which is our backup to our claim. So remember, our claim had a series of points in it. Well, our affidavit is going to have a series of points, and hopefully they're in the same order, because then you can correlate one to the other, back and forth, and there's no way they can get out of it. A lot of people think, well, that's too much work. I don't want to be bothered. I'm not going to do all that work. Who cares? Well, if that's your answer, don't bother filing a claim because you're going to lose your case. So once you turn around and do this, you file your documents, okay? You're going to do an affidavit. So what's the 6 points that we need to write an affidavit? Okay, the title of the affidavit. I am so-and-so of such and such address. And then you craft up your statement, your basic claim. You write all your points in a point-by-point basis. Okay, you reiterate your statement of truth as a summary statement, and you sign and notarize the thing in front of a notary. Don't sign it until you get to a notary's office. Every lawyer is a notary, or if you don't have an a-hole for a court system, you might be able to get them to do it for you. Our court system here is corrupt, and you have to go to a lawyer to do it, but that's because they don't do their job right. That's common when you're self-litigant, by the way. Okay, but once you get this thing and you sign and you drafted it all up, you bring it in front of a notary. The notary will probably stamp your exhibits if you have any. Okay, we're going to get into that in a minute. And then they will actually give you back your document. Sometimes they actually want to photocopy it for some strange reason. But anyway, you want at least a copy served that's copyable for you, and you may want a copy served for them. Because when you file documents in court, remember I had all those list of people up there we were going to serve. If you're going to sue one party, okay, for some reason, you need a document for the court file. You're going to need a copy probably for the judge, just in case. You're going to need a copy for the plaintiff, or for the defendant, rather, the guy you're suing. So that's 3 copies. You're going to want a copy for yourself so you can argue your case, and you should darn well bring a spare. Because a lot of times what the other side will do, oh, we don't have the document, my secretary forgot to file it, the dog ate it, it's in my other car, it's in my shorts, whatever. And they don't bring it to court and they get an extension of time. Why the hell give them an extension of time? We'll just bring a spare book, and then we'll just hand them our copy and say, here, use this. Now they're screwed, because if they're not prepared, guess what? The case is going forward because their excuse just went out the window. And they will pull it, believe me. So you write up your affidavit. That's what your affidavit is a statement of facts, and it's listed, it looks like this, okay? And it's just in a point, I am John Hunter, the city of Burlington, region municipality of whatever, make an oath and say. And then you just point 1, point 2, point 3. There's no limit on how many points you can put in there. Okay, but if you try and file more than 40 pages, they're going to probably look at you like, what are you, crazy? And then what they'll do is that the commissioner that actually does it will stamp the document. Okay, they'll have you sign it, which is John Hunter, and then they'll fill out this garbage on the bottom, and then you can file it in court. Now, when you do a document like this, sometimes there's an exhibit that goes with it. An exhibit is a document or a picture, and every exhibit has to have its own little letter assigned to it. So you can use numbers or you can use letters, but don't go back and forth. And they have to go in logical order. So if you look at the bottom paragraph on number 6 here, it says marked here as Exhibit D. Okay? So there was obviously an A, a B, a C, and now a D, and maybe there's more. We don't know. But you can have as many exhibits as you want, okay, within logical reason. If you get documents that are so darn big, like I do, that have more than 400 pages to it, you may have to actually bind it in 2 separate documents, Book 1 and Book 2. Okay, I've done that, and they kind of look at me, but it goes through. It'll work. When you file court documents, there's 2 types of bindings that are required. Okay, they only want 1. There's a coil binding, and there's a Surlocks binding. Don't make the mistake and use the coil binding, because they'll get mad at you for it. Surlocks is the plastic ones, and they're big plastic, and they got teeth that wrap around, and they tuck in underneath. The reason they don't want the other wire bindings is there's a little barbed wire that snags and gets caught on other documents, and they get mad at you. When they stamp your exhibit, they're going to stamp it. This is exhibit. I can't move the mouse here too much. And there's a blank line. That would be Exhibit D if we were referring to the earlier one. And the affidavit of, and it would be John Hunter or whoever you are, sworn before me on this, and it'll have a date, okay? And the day of, and it'll have August or September, whatever month as goes there, and then the year. So right now that would be 2020. So that solves that problem. Once we get this affidavit supplied in there with our evidence, we're going to have to serve that back to the court, which it'll have to have a backer sheet. And then once you serve it, you're going to serve it to the other side first, and then go into court with an affidavit of service that says, I served this document to the other side. I was able to identify the person by whatever. Okay, whether they gave you their name or whether they, gave you a business card, whether you saw the name on their shirt, maybe you asked them for their driver's license, whatever. Okay, and then it'll have a backer sheet just like this, same as before. And like I said, you can use the same document, just rename the context of the document, away you go. Now, we're going to get into the technical side of this. Okay, why are we doing this? This is an actual output from an HF59D, which is an RF detector. What that RF detector did, for the guy that owned it, he had 2 repeater towers. If you look on the website, on the Facebook page, you're going to find a picture there with an antenna with 3 or 4 antennas sticking out, look like fingers. And this thing would go along, bang, 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 and then it would disappear. And then bang, 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 it would disappear. And what this ended up doing was actually rattling the guy's wife's teeth that were screwed to her jaw loose. So her teeth fell out, and they paid good money to have them in. And what he did was he actually used this. This is what's coming off of a repeater tower. You're going to have something very, very similar coming off an RF tower, which is a cell tower. Okay, and the higher the frequency it is, the more damage it'll do. And so when he was able to record this, he finally got an affidavit and a document from a doctor which stated, look, this guy's got medical problems and here's his evidence, and they immediately removed the tower. They removed the antenna, and then the tower will go later, but they shut down the antenna and they removed these radios. So that was good news. Okay, that's how that worked. Now, the problem is that this harmonic that's being picked up, you notice it's a sort of a sine wave, but it's kind of squashed, and then there's all those squiggly red lines. That's signal that doesn't belong there, and that's in the air. Well, that's from one transmitter. One. How many transmitters are in your area? Okay. Unfortunately, the HF59D and the meters that are like it do not tell us the frequency. I'm working with gigahertz solutions to figure out a way to get that figured out. But we don't care. The point is that that's harmful, bad news, and we can prove it comes from that tower. Almost any RF detector will tell you the strength of a signal, but it may not tell you the frequency. If you don't have an HF59D, which is one of the higher frequency meters made from gigahertz solutions, they also have other meters. And they might say, well, I don't have a recorder, and that meter that you're talking about is $1,100. I can't afford that. What you can do is you can use your phone or a video camera and take a standard RF meter and videotape you holding the meter and make sure you document the readings. That will still be admissible. This is a paper chart, and paper is easier to get into a court than an actual video file, but it's still a way to do it. And this thing here, okay, felt terrible in Jacqueline, which was the guy's wife, and she had to get off the property, okay? And she could feel this in her heart. People that get exposed to this guy in particular, tells me that when he feels this stuff, it's literally like standing in a hailstorm. And there's been people in his house, and their blood vessels get bigger. So it causes all kinds of havoc. So we have to get rid of it. This is caused from a cell tower, from a repeater tower. But we got another problem. Not only is this thing transmitted in the air, but it's also picked up by all the wiring in his house. And this is what happened to, a lot of people. And so a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to go shut the main panel box off, the main fuse, and that'll solve my problem. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. And the reason is that your house actually has 3 wires in it, and you've only shut off 2 of them, so the white wire is still transmitting. And even if it wasn't transmitting dirty electricity from the smart meter, it's still getting the radiation from this, so you didn't get around it. This is the grounds why we have the right to go after the cell tower companies. Okay? But it gets worse. Because if you look at a standard sine wave, which is what this is off on the oscilloscope, it looks fairly clean. It's an S pattern, and it looks normal. But if you get dirty electricity, which is a totally separate issue, and it's caused by switch mode power supply in a lot of our electronics, this nice clean sine wave, okay, I'll get back to this in a minute, looks like this. The sine wave is there, and the dirty garbage is that red stuff. That's dirty electricity from the smart meter. Okay? And a lot of electronics does the same thing. We'll get into why. Now, somebody asked me today, so I had to come in and put this thing in here. They said, well, how does this thing screw around with your mind? How does the cell tower screw up with your mind? And the problem is I took an AM signal. This is a depicting of an AM signal. Okay, so the main signal is like a radio. So if you think of a radio, you tune it into some channel on a radio. And say it's tuned into something that's not nothing. It's just station. You're going to see the top sine wave or top waveform, the red one. And then you get, that's the audio signal. Okay, but if you want to go and you say, okay, well, what's the actual station, the one that has no sound? Well, that's the carrier wave. That's the blue one. So what they can do, since we know that people's minds generally work somewhere between 6 and 8 hertz, if they transmitted a signal, a carrier wave of 6 to 8 hertz, they can then transmit the main signal and mess with your mind. And you'll forget things. You'll go, wait, what was I saying? Oh, crap, I can't remember. And so what the waveform looks like now is it looks like the purple one. If you look at the purple waveform, you're going to notice there's the carrier wave, which is the blue one, and there's the main signal on top of it, superimposed. That's how that works. And so they can actually mess with your mind because that cell tower is transmitting. The bad news is the newer cell routers and the cell towers at higher frequencies aren't working at 2.4 or 3.2 or even 4 gigahertz. The newest standard that they want to put in, from what I read, was 23 gigahertz up to 120 gigahertz. So that's a really bad problem. Think of it this way. I have a gun, and the gun's 40 caliber, and I'm going to shoot a hole in you, and that's the low frequency. And it's probably going to do some damage, and you're probably going to bleed. But then I'm going to take a smaller gun, which is a 222 machine gun, which is a higher frequency. You're going to get hit more often, and I'm going to pull the trigger for about 5 seconds. It's all a bunch of small holes, but now you're a pincush and you bleed to death. That's in essence what's happening with this carrier wave with this higher frequency. We don't want this problem, so we have to stop this before they install it. Now, if we go back to our original paperwork, there's our sine wave, which is what we should have coming in our house, and there's what we have coming in our house. All that purple crap. That stuff is not good. Now, if you look, somebody asked me, they said, well, I've been asked or told that the dirty electricity can wreck your appliances. Well, you know what? They're right. Because if we look at the maximum voltage, see what it says down there in the chart? Forget the picture. Just look at the chart that's on the one side of the page. It says 171.28 volts. Okay? That's what's on the actual sine wave. But look what's on side B. It's overloaded. It can't even read the darn thing. Which means your electronics in your house are getting really, really high voltages. Now, there's a tolerance in electric land when you deal with electricity, plus or minus 5% or plus or minus 10%. Which means, let's just say it was 10%. 5% either way. But let's say we're going to push it 10% one way. That means instead of 120 volts, okay, we would actually be able to have an extra 12 volts, right? So we would have 132 volts. And I would be within the spec. No problem. Okay, and that's perfectly acceptable. This is 171.28 volts plus because it's over the limit. You can see from the sine wave, if you look at the sine wave, you can see it got chopped off. But you can also see the spike on the purple side, and it got chopped off too. So it's over the limit. So there's how it burns out your electronics. If you increase the voltage to some electronic component, it draws more current because voltage is push, and so it pushes more current through the component. The component isn't rated for that kind of current, so it burns it out. Simple, very simple. So what ends up happening is, if you look at your electrical wiring in your house, which is what this funny looking chart is, if we look down the one side where it says 14, most of your house wiring for standard 120 volt wall plug is 14.2 or 14.3 wiring. If you look at the frequency, it says maximum frequency for 100% skin depth solid conductor copper. I'll assume you didn't wire your house with aluminum. It is actually at 6,700 hertz. Okay? So if I put that in kilohertz, it's 6.7 kilohertz. But guess what? That switch mode power supply in that meter is at least at 10, 20, or even 40 kilohertz. So the wiring in your house that's getting all this dirty electricity, all these spikes, is getting way more frequency than it's designed for. So what ends up happening is, it's equivalent to having a beer bottle, and if somebody says, oh, can you fill this beer bottle with water? I say, sure. And I go get a 45-gallon drum. I tell you to hold the bottle, and I'm going to pour the 45-gallon drum and fill that bottle up. Some of it goes down the bottle, inside like you wanted it, and the rest of it goes all over the outside. And it radiates into the room big time. Okay? And so that's why we have the dirty electricity. I've actually seen a picture of a meter where a meter was installed in an apartment building, and the side of the wall changed color because the RF was actually heating up the wall and it actually cooked it a little bit. Really, really screwy. So if we go back to our chart, we can see that the meter, the wiring in the house, and because of the switch mode power supply, is being subjected to a lot higher frequency than it was ever designed for. And that could cause the wiring to break down, burn down your house. It's hard to say what causes fires, but that's one potential problem. Okay? Another problem is the meter contacts in the back, which I didn't put a picture of, are actually smaller on the newer meters than some of the older meters. And so what happens is a loose connection, it arcs, and then we got a problem. Once it arcs, it degrades the contact. Once it degrades the contact, it builds up heat, builds up resistance, which makes more heat, which causes a fire. So the meter is a problem. The other thing is, when they pulled the meter from your house, current was probably not turned off the main panel. So electricity is going to try and jump the arc. It's going to try and jump the gap, okay? And it's going to degrade and burn the contact a little bit in the meter base and on the meter. But we don't care because they threw that meter away. And then they go put another one in, brand new one, and they degrade it again when they make the second contact because they didn't do it right. If you don't believe this or you want to test it out, go get a ceramic heater that plugs in, fits under your desk. It's about 20 bucks. Plug it in the wall, and then quickly unplug it after it's turned on high. You'll see a spark. Well, that's exactly what happened inside your meter. Well, eventually, it degrades the meter, and then your house burns down. And then they'll blame it on you because they'll tell you, well, you should have upgraded your electrical service. which they actually tried with a guy in Toronto, and I said, no, if that was the case, you shouldn't have installed the meter. So they were going after him for $5,000, and when I was done, they ended up fixing his house for free. But that was that was a good thing. The guy actually called me while his house was on fire. I told him to beat the meter off the side of his house. The problem with what causes this harmonics, okay, this is right from Google. I looked it up. If you read what this thing tells you, don't read all of this crap, but it says their switch mode currents can cause electrical noise problems if not carefully suppressed and simple design, and then they have poor power factor. What they're talking about with this electrical noise, we call that total harmonic distortion, THD. Now there's a standard out, but you're going to need to write this down. It's standard 519. And what it tells you is it tells you what the voltage specs are supposed to be. It also tells you what the frequency spec is supposed to be. Now I can tell you from working in a power plant that it's supposed to be 60 cycle. If this blue sine wave is a 60 cycle sine wave, which means 60 pulses per second, obviously this here purple stuff is way more than the 60 cycle. In fact, if we look at it, it was 25 kilohertz, which is 25,000 hertz. Wait a minute, we're supposed to be at 60 and we're at 25,000. Well, how the heck does that comply with the 519 standard? Guess what? It doesn't. There's no way in the world it does. And even when they put in their filter, okay, which they have a filter that they put in, it dropped it to 3.3 kilohertz. It's still way higher than it's supposed to be. Now, if you look at a Stetzer meter, it was reading 455 and now it reads 70, but it's still over the limit. So even plugging in a Stetzer filter didn't solve your problem. Neither did the green wave filter because it does something similar. So what we want to do, we know this power factor is out. We also know that we have harmonics. When we look at that side of it on an oscilloscope, what it's doing is it's chopping the sine wave to make our circuit the voltage that we want, because they don't want to put a transformer in there, it's too expensive. So it ends up doing stuff like this, and this becomes a pulse. If I follow it, the power is on, and then it drops. So when it drops, there's a collapsing magnetic field, so it races to the bottom. And then all of a sudden they need some voltage to run the circuit, and bang, up it goes. It runs for a little piece, and then they shut it off, and bang, down it goes. And then there's a little bit of residual, and then it drops out, and it goes to the bottom and back up and down. It does this at 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 times a second, which causes this dirty electricity right there, okay? If you look at where it's up and down, that's where it's pulsing up and down at whatever frequency they've got their switch mode power supply to operate on, because they didn't want to put a transformer in. So this is what a switch mode power supply looks like, and if you notice, there's only one little coil in there, and it's not, well, actually there's two in this one, but it doesn't work right. It causes a problem, okay? It causes that problem, okay? So they didn't want to put the proper stuff in there. What I ended up doing is I went and built a filter that actually filters out a lot of that stuff. You don't see any of that harmonics. In fact, if you look at it, I've actually filtered it, you know, you don't see it here, but 11 different ways of filtering it. So my sine wave and the dirty electricity pretty much match up. So there is no more of this harmonics on your system, or very little of it, because it approximates a sine wave. That's what we want. But if you use those plug-in filters, that's what you get, which is not what you want. So that's why my filter was better than their filter. But anyway, if you want to compare them, there's what theirs looks like, there's what mine looks like. So it was a better way to do it. But when I build something, I don't try and do it the cheap way. I try and do it the right way. The same thing with our legal case. I have over 700 documents that prove we're right, okay, as far as this dirty electricity. And if we go any further than that, if you want to get back into the website or back to looking at more information or get some of that information, those are the two websites. There's a smart meter litigation group, which deals with one side of it, and then there's a geoengineering that deals with the other side. Now, my hope was to have a few of the geoengineering people or the chemtrail people here tonight, but it doesn't look like they showed up, so they missed out. But it's the same protocol to file the legal paperwork for that. Okay, so the protocol fits both ways. Now that I've given you all that nice information, does anybody have any questions?
Well, Stan, we got some questions along the way, and
okay.
One of them was, okay, so do you think every package has got to be this 300 package?
Yes, because what we do is If we're talking with respect to the smart meters, yes, because what we're doing at least for the tower people, we're showing where the tower does not conform to the FCC regulation, which was a court case that happened 3 times. It was appealed 3 times, and 3 times they said no, the thing must have an assessment. And I got news for you, none of them do. So that invalidates all cell towers. So, and if you send the same thing to the school, and you send the same thing to the Ministry of Health, and the same thing to the, the principal, the same thing to wherever, they're all going to know, wait a minute, these towers are not even freaking legal.
Mm-hmm.
So then hopefully they will enlist in our war, and they'll say, wait, we're going to contact the school board too. We've been told this is no good. And our hope is that school board and Ministry of Health all get all this backlash, and they say, hey, we can't do this. We have to shut this crap down. The idea was originally that we'd have lots of people in it for the same state, 5 or 10 people, so we could actually split the cost. Sadly, that didn't work out. Very few people actually did what I asked them to. When we go to with respect to the smart meters, we can put in the same paperwork, but we also got to put in the paperwork as part of this dirty electricity. And the only way we're going to be able to prove it, because we can't mess around with the meter. We can't take the meter out and do what we want and then put it back. That's illegal. But what we're going to have to do is get a hold of an oscilloscope, which we happen to have, get a hold of a meter base, which we happen to have, get a hold of one of the meters that matches the one that's on the side of your house, and then hook it up to a very clean power supply and say, this is before the meter was installed, and this is what happens after the meter is installed. And once we do that, we've now proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, because we'll videotape the darn thing if we have to. We'll get a couple witnesses. What we're going to prove is that meter contributes to the dirty electricity. Well, if that's the case, that dirty electricity has to go. Why? Because it doesn't comply with the 519 standard, which is a requirement under the IEEE, which is electrical standard is throughout the world. So now I've screwed every smart meter up, then they have to get rid of them. And the only alternative they're going to have is to allow us to put the old ones back in, or they're going to have to come up with a better meter. So yes, unfortunately, everybody's going to have to get the same package with minor modification, of course, because you got to change their address.
Dan, and then Vince, I unmuted you. Did you have a question?
About the harmonics, I had horrible harmonics. Actually, I got a really quick story on how I was affected, and it really messed me up. I've been resisting for over 3 years, letter after letter from my power company, and then they started showing up on my property, kind of intimidating us, and I kicked them off, and then, I don't know, 3 weeks later, they came back, and they gave me a choice, and the choice was, we put these 2 smart meters on your house. And I looked at him, he looked at me, then he looked at his watch and said, if you don't let us put it on, we will disconnect you from the road. So they put it on, and then I had immediate problems from the RF right out of the gate. And they had to come out, and they had to opt me out, which is very confusing for a lot of people because they think opt out, you get to keep your analog meter. That's not the case where I live. Opt out means they turn the RF signal off. Okay, but I had major issues as Stan was relating in his content. The harmonics and the EMF. It was driving me crazy. It still is. I don't know. I think it's the smart meter, the cell phone towers, and the power lines. There's just so much crap coming out of all 3. I got a miserable life, and I need this to halt and stop. And my memory is horrible. My joints hurt. My whole body is just shook up. And I just hope I can heal back to normal. I'm very scared. I'm very scared about getting cancer and, related illnesses to this technology. That's all I have to say.
I'm right there with you, Vince, on that. I haven't been comfortable. I think I wrote in the chat in 3.5 years, but honestly, it's been longer than that. And I feel like constantly like I need to lay down. And
Yes.
I had teeth crack in my metal fillings that were being vibrated. So my teeth on my jaw have cracked. I have broken teeth. And
Yes.
yeah, it's I didn't realize the extent until Stan was able to show me some of that, why, like how to see you, thing to you. I think a lot of people don't even know that they're being agitated like this. And I am actually a vibrational healer. So I feel subtle energies.
Yes.
Yeah. And I stopped doing healing work because I felt so much pain energy from my own self
Wow.
that I just didn't want to do that anymore, right? Like, so it's really strong, especially in the area that I'm at. And I go in and out because my fiance is from Canada and I'm from Montana. So I know the difference in the feeling when I
Yes.
leave these places. Yeah.
Oh, so do I. I have to take whenever I go anywhere, I take a tri-field meter with me. Because when I start feeling my head starts pounding or I get sensations, the back of my neck starts cracking. When I move it, I know there's a power source close by. And every time I turn on the tri-field meter, it's accurate. It really is. My life has really changed. And, Stan, he helped me out to get rid of my harmonics. I mean, tremendously. I couldn't even watch TV in the room because it was like a force field was in there and the smart meter was on the corner wall. And my wife's like, I can't sit in here. Now she understands all this. I show her the proof with, the tri-field meter and the proof with, I did an insulation with a filter. But, I'm so sensitive now that it needs to be taken off my house. And these towers need to be gone. And the chemtrails, God only knows what's in that. I mean, I don't know how much longer I'm going to, last because I'm so fatigued all the time. And that's about all I have to say.
Anybody else want to chime in? Nicole's been on the chat.
Yeah,
Welcome.
she's muted right now.
Yeah, you got to hit that little microphone.
There we go. Hi, guys.
Hi, Nicole.
I've been a chatty catty, haven't I?
Do you go by Nicole or Nikki? Sorry.
Doesn't matter, whatever you like, hun. Yeah, so Vince, you got to make like a safe zone and start a whole bunch of paperwork. You got to shut these puppies down. I mean.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh yeah, and it's like.
So maybe a Faraday cage.
The Faraday cage will not work. We have 5G out here. Okay.
That's insane.
And, yes, and I was doing everything. Stan was just remarkable, helping me out and my family out. I never met somebody that really cares.
Yeah, he's a hero. He is.
So, we put the filter in and oh my God, this is crazy. I was feeling a lot better. It doesn't happen overnight.
Okay.
Gradually I started feeling better. And then 2 weeks out, I started getting that, my ears were ringing. I'm like, what the hell, what's going on? And anything I did prior to that, it worked, okay? I mean, that's how intense it was. Kind of like a Faraday. And so 2 weeks out, I'm like, Stan, I don't know what's going on. He goes, well, something's entering your house and this and that. Found out it's 5G. And I can actually validate when they turn it like on to where it bothers me to where they turn it up and it just, I can't function. My head, my brain rattles. And people, they're like, what are you talking about? They don't understand it because I'm sensitive to it now.
Yeah.
And one other note I wanted to say is when I do run into people, say I haven't seen them in a couple months and I see them face to face, they actually look wore down and they don't even know it. They got the bags under their eyes. They look like they've just been dragged over the coal.
It's like the frog in the boiling water, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's a terrible syndrome. But people are awakening. They are waking up, but too slowly. It's like the frog in the boiling water.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's you know, when Stan was telling me that you know how many people are going to understand, you know how many people are going to get involved.
Yeah,
And
all they want is their football game and their six pack, and leave me alone.
Yes, absolutely. And Dan knows me pretty good, and I don't ever mean to be rude or interrupt, but when I do interrupt, it's because if I don't say it right then and there, I'll forget it. And Stan knows that about me. He's been very patient with me.
I think we're a little all in the same boat, eh, guys?
Yes. Good days and bad days. More bad than good, but you know, I pray every night.
That's what we got to do. And there's only two ways to be Vince, okay? Either in love or in fear. That's absolutely the only way and fear is only false evidence appearing real. So it's all your perceptions and it's belief systems, right? It goes back to how we were raised, peer, society. So once we get out of that zone and into our zone, I mean, you either come from love, hun, or you come from fear. So if you keep, you know, we can't propagate the fear because it's illusions, right? So I'm studying a course in miracles, and it's really game and life changing. And I'm so very much at peace, and just have to come from love. Because anything else, you're hurting yourself.
I agree.
I think what that does is that vibration is such a higher quality than the other vibration that it cancels that other vibration out.
Right.
And I think that what we're doing here is we're facing the fear, which is so incredibly positive.
And not alone either. We're facing it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where two or more are gathered, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Amen to that. So, okay, we got to do some paperwork, folks.
Yes.
That's why, if you remember back in the early days, I was asking people, take a picture of your meter, take a picture or get the address of every cell tower within 45 to 50 miles.
Here's his famous words. Say it.
Now yeah. But that's why I was asking people to do it, because we need that information.
Okay, but Stan, one of my questions is, like, this is to rope everybody in is so costly, right? How come we just can't start with the city, put them on notice, get them in default, give them an opportunity to cure, get them in default, get a judgment. Then the city, I've got Kelowna. Then I'll go BC, Horgan, put him on notice, get him in default, get a judgment. Then go to the PF. Why do I have to go to a million bazillion freaking companies?
Okay.
And ministers and
if you go back to this, I don't know if this will work. I'll make it work. If you go back to this thing, back to the start, right? Figure this out, Nicole. Say you're going to go after these people, right?
Well, I've got a tickle in my throat. Hang on. I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, I don't know what. Okay, where the heck are we here? Okay, let's say we're going to go after these people for wireless technology. How many people are on this list? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Do you want to pay to have 12 court cases which are going to cost you $300 a piece, or would you want to pay for one?
There I am. Well, I just want to get bathroom and the mayor, and then once I got him, then I'll go for the premier, and then I'll go for the prime minister, and I'm done.
Okay, but what you can do, you don't have any kids that go to school, so you maybe don't care about the school board. But some people do,
Well,
right?
I
So I have to
did,
cover.
so I do.
What?
Goofy. You know, I do. Of course I care about the kids, goofball.
No, but I'm saying you don't have a kid. Well, no, but you know what I mean. It's not
Yes.
your immediate problem because you don't have a kid in school.
Yeah.
But if you send this note, you can send these letters out to everybody. Because the hope is, okay, that they're going to go, holy crow, this is illegal and this is not right. This isn't safe. Well, wait a minute. I got to
Stan.
work
Okay,
here.
Stan.
Holy crap.
But I
And
don't
so-
want to send them all 300 pages. Can I send one synopsis, one letterhead, one sheet, one letter, cover letter to each of them saying, I've put the mayor on notice. And now I'm putting you on notice that I put the mayor on notice. So now you know that he knows.
Right, but where's your proof?
Screw, all I need is one guy. I just need to pin and win one guy me. No? I just need my one.
Didn't
I
I
need
tell
my
you
mayor,
guys somebody's going to
then
try
I
and
need my
cut corners?
premier, then I need my prime minister.
Well, yeah, but in your case, you have, like I've been there, so I know where you live. But you have all those meters behind your building.
Yeah, I've got 7 of them in my back bedroom.
Yeah,
No,
you're
wow.
going to end up with cancer, dude. So
No
you're
shit.
going to have to send one to the property owner, right?
But if we put the city on notice, oh yeah, you're talking about me. At first, I was talking about.
But the
I know
city,
you want me to do the smart meters too, Stan, but that's not. I said yeah, but geez,
You
I
said,
wanted
I'll
to
call
go
you
after
tomorrow,
the
and you didn't
towers,
do
the
it.
5Gs, because I've been living with this for what 2-3 years, and I'm okay. You know, like for now.
You don't know
for
that.
now.
You
for
don't know
now.
that.
I know. I got tingling toes the other day. A tingling. Oh, it's horrible.
Anyway,
But
these are the
anyways,
people.
yes, okay, I do agree with smart meters, but you know I really wanted to go after the towers. And then once I feel good and I get some wins with the towers, I'll go for the smart meters. Because
You
this is
could
a
if you
lot of
wanted to
money
divide
and
it out.
this is a lot of time and a lot of effort here, buddy. You know that. That's why people aren't doing it, because they're too freaking lazy.
no, they're scared. They're
That's
scared for retaliation.
And lazy, Vince, and unaware, and they don't care.
Well, Nicole, they should care, and here's why. The only people that we contacted, okay, I contacted directly. I went to every Facebook page
Yes.
there was on the group on the internet. They
You
were
did.
already talking about it, and that's all they freaking do is they talk about it. They don't actually do any action.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
You're the
Hey,
only
Nicole, look, your house is on fire. Hey, look, it's burning. Nobody says, hey, go get the fire extinguisher. They go, oh, look, hey, where's the marshmallows? No, focus on the solution, because you know what? This outbreak we've had with this COVID-19, which is, I think, BS anyway, but this gave people a warning. You can't do this global stuff and rely on China or some other foreign outfit. We got to start fixing our problem in our own backyard, right?
Yeah.
But in your case, I mean, you're living right next to those blasted meters.
Yeah. All I got between me and the is a shed. That's all I got between
Yeah,
them.
that piece of wood's not going to stop squat.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if
Yeah.
if somebody on Messenger just, hey, I want to get on, but if I click, will this Zoom go off? If I go on the Messenger, will I lose the Zoom footage?
You might, but you can come back, Vince.
Okay, yeah, all right.
We might let you back in. Well, one thing I've told people to do before you disappear, Vince, is
Yeah.
I've told people to cover up with like literally take a aluminum window screen,
Yes, I have.
the non-colored stuff,
I
and put
have.
it on your bed and wrap yourself in it, and then you can try this, because it may or may not work depending.
No,
if your house
that
is
works,
screwed up.
Dan. That works.
I know it should work.
But
You
it
get
doesn't-
an alligator clip and you ground it to the electrical box with
But
a
I'm
grounding
living-
wire.
Yes, I'm living proof that yes, that works.
You
But
wire yourself in with aluminum?
the 5G
Yeah, we
is
know what we're
coming
doing.
in. The 5G is coming in the house. I
Yes,
can't
but
battle
before the
that.
5G, you did that and it worked. Right? It worked. It solved your problem. You used to wrap your head in the screen because it was
Oh,
affecting your
yeah.
mind. It worked. Once they put 5G and it's a higher frequency, that aluminum screening idea will not work. However,
No, it does not.
however, I'm going to tell you something real important.
Yes.
There's a company out in Germany that makes a shielding material which will stop up to 50 gigahertz and then it peters off after that. A lot of people try and buy a shielding material
Yes.
and they say, well, it doesn't work. No, you're right, because the shielding material has to be matched up to the frequency that you're trying to stop.
Yes.
Now, if you get a shielding material that's good for 100 gigahertz, it'll
Right.
stop anything from 100 gigahertz down. Likewise, if you get something that's for 3.5 gigahertz and you get
Right.
some 10 gigahertz signal,
It
I'm
ain't gonna
sorry,
work.
it's not rated to do that. It'll go right through.
Yep.
So that's one alternative, is to use the screening, okay, or to use this cloth material, which is fairly expensive. The other alternative is to use the paint, and there's a company in Germany that sells a paint. The bad news with this is it's only in one color, so you get one color choice. That's nice. It's black.
Yeah.
So you have to
It's
paint your
expensive.
wall with this black paint. You got to take this silver tape and tape it around where your baseboards are so they all come off. And then underneath where your wall plugs are, you put a little piece of tape and you tuck it in and you touch it onto the metal. And what that does is it grounds the wall to your electrical outlet, which was the exact same thing I did with Vince. Okay, and I did it with a few other people and it works.
Yep.
But
Yep.
you don't necessarily want to do that. You don't want to paint your entire building. So what I've advised people to do is go back to the smart meter litigation page, which talks about this, and you can build a canopy out of that same material.
Yes.
Then you just, open the little screen thing and you climb in and you go to bed. It's a lot cheaper than trying to line the whole building with. But there again, this will solve your problem. You'll be able to sleep, your body will generate melatonin, you'll rebuild yourself, and you won't be all tired and dragged out because you don't have any sleep.
Yep.
But what are you going to do when you want to work in the rest of your house? So the problem then becomes, well, I'll paint my whole house. Well, that's great, but that paint's expensive. So this is why we want to take the legal action to shut that crap down. Then we don't have to do all that stuff.
Yes. And you're our only hope, Stan.
Yes. Well, as far as I know, I may be wrong on this, but as far as I know, I'm the only guy that's now giving you the education on how to do this paperwork to some extent. Now, because there's nobody from Ontario and apparently nobody from the United States except you, Vince, the next time I deal with this thing and I deal with paperwork, I'm going to deal with Michigan because I know where you live.
Yep.
And the same thing for Nicole. I'll say because I know where she lives.
Do they know that I invited you here to stay here? And
Oh, no, I didn't tell them all that stuff.
oh, I support this. And it's not just for my benefit. It's for, the people, the community, I know there's people, there's some old people I know, they're going through this. Their house is all electric, the heat and everything. And I'm watching them just wither away. And it just bums me out, man. She's down to 95 pounds. They don't know what's wrong with her. And I told her, I went through her whole house. And I go, here's your problem. And they don't do nothing about it.
But they don't know what to do. What options do they have? Like, can they get
I told them, I go, you guys need to get out of this house, especially in the wintertime, and go somewhere and just regenerate yourself. But they're just not gonna, they're tired, they're confused.
And they have the means to do this, Vince.
Yes, they have the money to do it.
Wow. See, they're just asleep.
And I tell him that, I go, Don, you can lead a horse to water. I go, I'm leading you, but you're not doing anything. And what I'm asking for you to do isn't that hard.
Nope.
No.
One thing that you can do, okay, which I shouldn't tell you how to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. What's happening is you have a DC circuit. If you want to just deal with the dirty electricity, you can put a filter in, and I make filters that do this. Yep. But one of the things you can also do is you can run your house on DC, with direct current. Direct current doesn't have a sine wave in it. And if that crap gets in the sine wave and it gets rectified out, it'll all be one straight line. You won't be exposed to this. DC is actually better. However, if you plug your vacuum cleaner or something else into DC, okay, it's going to run hotter because if you remember the sine wave, it crosses a zero line where it goes negative.
Yes.
And so if you do this, you actually have to derate your circuits. And if you try and run an AC circuit breaker with DC going through it, it won't trip until you've actually doubled the current, burnt the wiring out.
Oh,
But
shit.
there is a way to do it where you can run your lighting on DC. Okay, because your lights don't care. They'll run to AC, DC. They don't give a crap.
Then what if you have to use the vacuum, hun?
Then you got to plug it into an AC circuit.
Okay.
See, so then you run into the problem where you got squirrely wiring in your house. No,
See,
for me, I don't care. I just wire up what I want.
Yeah,
That
right.
doesn't work.
Right now, I'm in the pole barn, right?
Okay.
And I got a filter in there, and I got that one in the house. It's totally silent out here because, I mean, yes, it's working, okay, but the 5G is not turned up.
No.
I mean, I got no ringing in my ears, no nothing. Now
None.
tonight, I was talking to Stan, I don't know, a month ago. And I'm like, Stan, this is unbelievable. I go, my ears aren't ringing. This is how it should be. My house was neutralized. And then we started talking for a little bit. And I'm like, Stan, they're turning the shit up. They're turning it up. And
Yep.
damn it,
They turn
work.
it up at nighttime
Yes.
when you're sleeping, so you don't
Yes.
notice it.
Yep.
And I've got hundreds of people reporting the same thing.
Huh.
I have
Okay,
not slept comfortably in so long, Stan. I can feel the bed, like all the metal in the bed. It's actually, I'm uncomfortable so much that I feel more comfortable standing up.
Well, if your bed's made of the metal, can I make a suggestion? Build a wooden bed and put your mattress on top of that. Get rid of the metal altogether.
Yep.
That's your best bet.
We're getting
Yeah.
to where we can maybe buy a mattress that doesn't have metal in it. That is a goal.
Are your meters on where you sleep on the wall?
We,
Well, in her case, she's not hooked to the grid anymore.
yeah, we refused the meter and they cut us from the pole in September.
What?
Yeah, so
yeah.
they would have cut your power vents that day.
DTE
Oh, yeah.
is real good for that.
So we've been living
I know.
in the middle of town since September, and thankfully we have a wood stove and we've been doing just fine actually. But my fiance's been, working hard with figuring out batteries and we've just slowly pieced a power system together. So
I didn't know you were disconnected from the grid.
yeah.
So with a generator, how do you run your computer?
We have a couple different options. We have some batteries that we power up with the generator, and then I'll be on battery.
You rock. What a shiro.
Yep.
Wow, you're living the Amish dream.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of.
Hard.
I don't think the Amish actually use power, do they?
Huh?
Some of the Amish don't use batteries. They don't use AC or DC or nothing.
I'm not Puritan enough.
They do use generators.
Some do, some don't. Yep.
Yeah, the ones I know, he's got a generator for his workshop, and that's it.
Yep. They'll put it in the workshop because I had actually Amish people. I used to build drill sharpeners and other stuff for metalworking. And one guy asked me, he called me up, he says, can you make a hydraulic freaking drill sharpener? I said, what? Why in the hell would you want a hydraulic? He said, no, that's what we use. I said, that's not practical, buddy. I mean, you're better off with something else. But he wanted it. I built it, and he's happy.
Wow.
So, what do you do? But this is why if you wanted to go down Nicole's route, if we could axe the cell towers first, you would actually shut down the smart meter at the same time.
Yes.
Right.
Now, do they know about the transponders that is allowing this 5G to grid itself?
Oh yeah, everybody on this group will know that. Yeah, I was
Okay,
only trying to go over the legal side of what.
No. I get it. We're just just exchanging stuff. Yeah, since I met Stan, it's just the rabbit hole is deep. And what's the old saying, Stan? You ruined my life.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people tell me that. I did a conference or a seminar, in Calgary or whatever, and I got a room of however many people, and they're all at me, looking at me, and they're all mad. And I said, "Oh, you guys are all ticked off now." I said, "Now what's better than a room full of ticked off people? Now you should have the motivation to do something."
Yes.
That was back in 2008. Guess how many people did something?
Yeah.
We got a term for that, Vince.
Yeah.
But we won't repeat it here.
FA.
The thing is, once you know, you can't unknow.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
It's scary, that rabbit hole. I've been watching David Wilcock and Benjamin Fulford.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys know about those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And QAnon, and I think some really positive stuff is coming out of all this chaos and this madness.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I'm feeling really light about it, and I'm just sending lots of light out. Light and love, Yeah, I think it's exciting times.
A little scary too. We don't know what really is going on.
Yeah, but then you're coming from fear, not from love, Stan. There's no
I know, but it's the unknown. It's not fear. It's just, okay, what's next?
That's the adventure. That's why we're here. We chose to be here. I mean, So it's every day is a beautiful miracle. It's a day such I've never seen. Never know what the day brings.
That's true.
Yeah.
But no, that grounding is one thing that I know has helped people, and I worked with Vince, and I told him how he could check his electrical grounding in his house and pulling wires and this and that, and we got it. We did it.
Yeah, there's a couple of key people too that I'm surprised that are not more involved, like Karen McDonald, right? And she knows Ross. He's in Kelowna here. And he's like he has all your gadgets and more, and he goes into people's homes and he shows them what plugs to use and not to use. And he came into my home and did a sweep,
Yep.
And there's a couple of people, and they know, so I don't know why people have to wake up a little bit more, I think.
Well,
maybe,
I have an idea of well, I mean, something that we can all choose to do in our own area, but I know there's already, we already have like 5 people on Vancouver Island.
Okay.
And it's not going to be difficult to find more. What I would like to try to do is for each of us that is moving forward, that we work with each other and also find 10 more people in our area with each other. Like if we can just, for these first ones, if we can actually find some people to stand with us. There is another gal, I think she is from Kelowna.
Oh, really?
There's I'm not sure. I think it is. But I'll have to check with her. And so we have a handful in Canada.
Because it's nothing to pump out paperwork, right? I mean, that's what print shops are for, right?
Well, and Stan is.
Well, you got to do all the research first, but yeah.
Like a couple, like.
You told me you have it already, Stan.
Yeah, but I mean, you still got to do the research. If you're gonna, you say, you can't say it's not nothing, because it took some work to get it done. But once it's done, yeah, then he's just duplicating it.
Yeah, you have all the templates.
Yeah, for most of it.
All we need to do is put the names in and pay for, like the printing, the registered, all these affidavits, the notaries, the court case,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if we want to, kind of like even meet, we can use this platform to meet more often than I was actually thinking about when I'm on the computer and I'm doing other work, just keeping a Zoom room open that has a consistent number, a consistent link, and then anybody could pop in.
Okay.
Thinking at some point, if anybody wanted to host, like be here, we could actually share just, when it started getting busier, but we can start meeting and we can start coordinating. And I think if we talk to each other, now we talk to each other more, and we get the other people that have actually said they are willing to go forward. If we can get on a meeting together, we might each of us then be able to find a group of people in our area, and that's what I think it would be really powerful. And Stan asked for this information by the end of this month. So basically, the group was going to be determined by like last Friday, and then we have until the end of this month to get the data done. And that
I'm back. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Evan.
Oh, so my phone died.
Oh, welcome back.
Don't get that cell phone with a piece of junk.
Oh, jeez.
You're wanting to go up against Wi-Fi and smart meters, and you're using a cell phone. That's an oxymoron. You're gone.
I don't own a computer. We don't have a router. We have no,
Can't do everything. It's okay.
well, Stan knows I got a rotary phone.
Yep. I told people, and that's one thing you get, everybody can do this, and I don't know if you're all aware of it. Some people have an alarm clock that plugs in the wall or a lamp. Get rid of that piece of junk and get one that runs on a battery, and then it doesn't radiate because it's DC, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Solves your whole problem. And those touch
Yeah.
lamps are the worst.
Yes, when I got my tri-field meter, I went around my whole house. I could not believe the readings. Unbelievable. And my wife used to have her phone on her nightstand plugged in. And when I go, okay, let's simulate it, I go, well, here's your headaches, honey, right here. Not me, the phone.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, unbelievable. Everything.
I shut the breaker off in my room, and I never have my phone around me. And I shut my Wi-Fi at night.
Yep.
I don't have any of that, and I do shut my breaker off too. Yep.
Yeah, it's Stan who told me to do it. I said, "Oh yeah, that's freaking smart, man."
Oh, I wanted
The only problem is that eventually you keep flipping that breaker, it's going to get weak.
Oh.
You'll have to replace it. But I'm looking at, the breaker's $20 for my life. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think I'll cox the breaker. I don't care.
Right.
But here's the thing that I didn't get to show you guys, which I explained it earlier. But if you have screwed up wiring in your building, like I used to have, and you have a circuit, let's just say your building is a square. Okay, it's longer than it is wide, but let's say it's 40 feet wide, just hypothetically. If you have a positive wire going down one side and you have the negative wire going down the other, and they meet somewhere on a light bulb, okay? If you turn that circuit on, yes, it'll work. It will work. But if you're standing in the middle of that, the amount of electromagnetic radiation coming off them two wires is astronomically high because the two wires are separated. So what you want to do is make sure the two wires are in the same bundle of wire. And that was when I rewired the house here. That's what I ended up having to do. Because this guy had grounds, and I don't know how the hell half the stuff even worked.
Oh, yeah.
So I rewired it all, and the level went way down.
And who told me about that? You did.
Yeah, I did.
Yep. Oh,
yeah,
God, I went through everything. And what's crazy, everything in my house checked out. So then we pinpointed the smart meter. Sure did.
Yep. One thing, if you want to pinpoint, you want to verify if it's a smart meter or not, and you figure it is from the dirty electricity.
Yeah.
If you have one wall plug that's fairly close to your electrical panel, okay, and it's on a breaker, say, okay, shut every other breaker except the main one and that one off, and then plug in the dirty electricity meter, because it's the only thing in the circuit.
Yes.
So then you know darn well the only thing's causing the problem is that meter. And then as you flip on more every circuit, you'll find one, holy geez, it really jumped. Well, what's hooked up to that circuit? It'll be a computer, it'll be a television set, it'll be fluorescent lights, a CFL bulb, whatever it is. You'll find the problem. And what I ended up doing on here is I actually took all the light bulbs out and went back to the, whatever you call them, incandescent resistor type bulbs.
Yes.
Because those CFL bulbs and the other ones are bad for your eyesight.
Oh, and they put out huge EMFs, huge.
Yep.
So can you visualize this? You're at, at the kitchen table with your family, and say you got 5 of those light bulbs just radiating down on you. See, I feel that.
Yep.
Oh, what a mess. FYI, They're slowly turning up to 5G right now.
Oh, goodness.
Yep.
You know, I have a meter that's wired up all the time. And so the standard reading around most of the buildings I've tested around here are 470. That's the number before you put a filter in. So I went downstairs one day and I was checking because I was actually working with Vince's filter, and I worked with another guy to make sure it did the same thing. It was over 1,293.
That's horrible.
Now here's the problem. Anything over 50 is deadly.
Yep.
Huh.
My wife's wall was 45, and her
Yep.
head was like 4 to 6 inches away.
Does
Yep.
she believe you now, Vince?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, good.
Yep. No, and I got a buddy of mine lived in an apartment building, and he says, "Hey, you know about electricity crap? Can you come over and check something for me?" I said, "Sure, okay, I'll go over." And I grabbed my meters and off I went. And I went into his apartment, which has been there for a long time. It's a solid building, but anyway, I've been in there, and I walked in. And I said, "Holy crap! I got to get out of here, man. I feel like crap." I
Yep.
walked into his bedroom, which faces out to the lake. Right, he has a lakefront view. The numbers were so high on that thing, it had this thing pegged off the chart. It wouldn't read that high. I said, "What the hell's over here?" And I go out in his balcony, and all it is the freaking bay. I said, "Well, there's got to be a damn cell tower here somewhere." And so he had his computer office, and I said, "You put your bed here." And I said, "That'll solve that problem." I says, "And then you're moving." And they took him from the 12th floor, they put him on the 4th floor, and away he goes. No problem now.
Wow.
So
Yeah, people don't understand, like your 220 lines that run underneath your floor joists. Make sure you don't sleep. Your bed's not under that because it'll radiate you.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a big crystal under my bed, a raw crystal that's supposed to help me, take away the negative EMF. But man, I'm just so damaged. I mean, yeah, I try everything that I can benefit from.
Do those really work?
Yeah, apparently yes. And they're supposed to take that bad energy out. Oh yeah, mine isn't polished or anything. It's raw. It's black, and this one's raw.
I'll have to research that.
Yeah, if you touch it, your hands will get chalky, kind of like coal.
Huh.
And I met this rock lady. Oh yeah, she was just really gave me some real great information. And I'm trying to gather anything I can to make my life a little bit more pleasurable, instead of just being in this like jail cell.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like a straitjacket sometimes. It almost feels like it's drowning,
Oh yeah, and everybody should know about the mood swings. This causes mood swings and everything.
Huh.
And I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky guy, and I see it in people. They fight, they argue, and there's really no reason for it. And it's not their character. Oh yeah, we've been researching a lot of this stuff. And they know what this causes. These things were built as, me and Stan were talking, all this is built for depopulation, control.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, if you keep the person so busy, focused on income, and now their health is failing, they're not interested in doing anything else.
Nope.
What were the light bulbs that were the ones that were best again?
They're
Old
called
school.
incandescent.
Incandescent. Okay, thank you.
Just listen. Avoid CFL and avoid LED. And if you can't avoid those, well then guess what? CFL is your best bet. Because LED, actually, there's a blue filament tint to it, and it screws up your eyesight. And you'll go to read stuff. I'm guilty of this now. You could give me anything you want. The smallest print in the world, say read that, I could do it.
Yeah,
I had LED light bulbs in here. And guess what? Can't read small shit anymore.
Like vitamins or anything like that. It's ooh.
Well, look at all the new cars. Look at all the new cars. They got LED lights.
Yeah.
I gotta wear those yellow glasses at night because it really bothers me. And it's to the point where where I live, these a-holes don't turn their bright lights off.
That's
You
why
know,
you got a pellet gun, Vince.
Yeah. Oh, you should see the light I got on my truck now. They turn their brights off.
Yeah. We know that
Right.
one.
We should do this again soon. And then hopefully, now that I know how to work this, I can get more people on, you know, preach this and get more people on, because, you know, maybe do you know, just this was very informed, but people that are just catching on get, you know, maybe just have a quick one so they can kind of get the basics, you know what I mean? Kind of make that light bulb in their head go off, you know, seriously.
Well, this is recorded, Vince, and what we'll be able to do is give people a file and they can download it and listen to it and do whatever they want.
Okay. All right. That's great.
What I'll do as well is when I put those impromptu meetings, I'll share that in Stan's group on his board there on Facebook. And so you can just log in and say hi or something. I'd like us to be able to talk a little bit more, you know, like maybe even just have like a Facebook chat group or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
talk with each other, and then because it's coming up, it's the 24th. We only have a couple more days, and I really would like to try to get as much of the information that Stan wanted done, and I'll help whatever I can, because we've got the two of us, my fiance and I here, and then some other people in the local area. But then I also really want to focus on my hometown of Missoula, Montana as well. And
Nice.
so I have a lot of friends in that area, and I know while I have one friend that actually got some information to Stan, I still have to kind of pull her along a little bit, but I know if I put together the information that I'll be able to get some of my friends there to maybe start paying attention to it more.
Yes. Yes.
On the first part, but you know, anybody can still go through, and once, you know, as Stan's outlining what to do, they can follow this process, and maybe we can help them follow the process. But if we want to say, okay, we've got our areas and let's help each other get at least 10 people that want to file at the same time, it would be really, really stellar, I think.
Yep. No, I told Vince a little over a year ago, and he said, "No, I can get all kinds of people." I said, "Okay, Mac, I'll go at it." And
FA.
he said, it comes back a year later. I called him up and said, "All right, how'd you make out?" He goes, "Man, you can't get people to do nothing."
No, because this
we're done talking about what the problem is. We're going to talk about the solution now.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why I said people need to go on this call tonight, because the rest of them didn't really matter.
Well, real quick, this technology dumbs you down. It dumbs you down, this technology.
Oh, yeah. Same thing with vaccines, and same thing with the school. They want dumb, complacent sheep.
Well, they have for millennia on that account.
What did Stan? What did I tell you when I encountered the Amish community? They're very sharp.
They don't have any sicknesses. They don't have half these problems.
No, and they're very sharp people-minded. They're very sharp-minded because they don't have this technology in their house. Tell you, man.
And you get everybody and his dog wanting to buy the 5G phone. Now, I was told something, and I want you guys to think about this, because I don't know if it's accurate. I'm not going to go test it to find out. But if you look and go to Staples or Best Buy or some computer store, and you go look at a wireless router, you're not going to buy the darn thing, but go look at it. Some of them have a switch on it, and it'll tell you 5G or 4G or whatever they want you to run it on. It is possible that they could put a separate antenna in there that they can turn on remotely, and then they could basically radiate the crap out of you with 60 gigahertz.
Yes.
Remember the bullet thing I talked about? And you'd have no idea what's happening to you.
Yep.
So get off of this wireless garbage. Buy a piece of friggin' cat cable, and there you go. Wire the sucker to the wall. You know?
I agree.
I know a lady that she had 6 smart meters on the side of her building that she lived in, and it screwed her up to the point where she lost her hair, lost her teeth, and she now lives in a shed. With 2 cats.
Oh, Jesus. I guess we could Google that because I'm not very tech savvy, like for like routers and.
Well, you just want to avoid them. I'm just telling you to go to the store and look, and all you got to notice is there's more than one antenna on there, and that more if one antenna is longer than the other, it's for a different frequency.
Yeah, but because I've been thinking about this for years to get off my router, right, and go hardwire onto the wall, like you said.
Yeah.
So I guess because I'd have no clue where to start. I'm not inclined that way, you know. Like
No. No, but if you go to the store, okay,
Yeah.
you don't need a router, do you?
Well, I don't
Other than
know.
running your computer, what else do you want to run off it?
No, yeah, I know I could be like I have a landline now without a portable phone, so I know that was bad.
Yeah, but I'm asking you right now, as far as a computer and internet, what do you want to run besides your laptop?
Just my phone and my computer. And my
Right.
and my Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix. Yep, I knew that was
Okay,
coming.
so what you do, listen, guys, what you do is you go to the store if you're going to do that, and you figure how many things you want to run. For Nicole, it's 2. She wants to run her computer and she wants to run her television through Netflix.
And my phone.
Or Cody Box or whatever the hell she's using. So all you do is you go to the computer store and you say, look, buddy, I want a wired router. I don't care about wireless. I just want a freaking wired router.
Yeah.
They'll sell you a router for $69. And here's the thing. There is no better router. Because it's wired, wired is wired.
Hardwired,
And there is no better wired. They're all the same.
Yep.
So how much? There's $70.
What?
There's $70?
Yeah, $60 or so, yeah, with tax.
Huh.
Yep.
How come with our technology it's so expensive? You'd think it'd be like $20 or something.
No, they want to railroad you over the coals. But
so
what
I need
you're going to do?
Wired router.
Yeah, you want
hardwired.
Yeah, I got one here. I mean, I'll look it up if you guys want, and I'll send a picture of it somewhere. But I don't use it. I just wire direct to the wall. But what you have on the back of this router, it'll have probably 6 ports or 4 ports, whatever. They're usually yellow. And then there's one that's some different color, usually blue. And you're going to take your internet that comes off your modem and plug it into the router in the blue port, and you're going to plug all your other crap in the yellow port, and away you go. And you don't worry about what's the signal strength and all that crap because it's wired, right? They're all the same now. They're either wired or they're wireless or they're both. Well, you don't need the wireless portion, so why pay for something you don't want?
Still sounds like foreign language to me, but one day when God puts it in my path, I'll get it done. A hardwired router. That's all I got to remember.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I'm sure this other one is bad for me.
Well, hang on. If you have a wireless router,
yeah, you
might be able to either through a toggle switch, a little dip switch, or even through software, shut off the wireless part and just run it direct. You may not even have to buy a new router. Just turn the wireless crap off and wire it direct. And you can buy that Cat 5 cable. It looks like a phone cable except it's blue or it's yellow. It's one of the 2 colors. And it's got a little bigger end on the end of it, but it looks like a phone cord. And you just plug that sucker in and plug it in the side of your computer, and you'll have a faster signal, more reliable. It's not hackable, at least not as easy, and it's not microwaving the crap out of you.
Yeah, that's
so. What's the downside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you call that wire?
It's just a network cable. It's Cat 5 or Cat 6 network cable. I'll post pictures of all this crap on the board tomorrow when I get around to it.
Okay, hon, thanks.
If you guys check it, yeah, it's not a big deal. In my case, I got one thing hooked up to my computer, and that's the end of it. So I plug my stuff right directly in the modem. But if you want to run Netflix and your other video games, whatever they're tied to, then you may need more than one circuit. You may have to plug in some cables. They just plug in. They just snap in, and that's it. Plug it in the other end, done. No problem.
Good stuff. Good knowledge.
Yeah. And the cables are cheap. They're like $5 or something for 25 foot cable. You can get them up to 50 feet.
See, it's stuff we should know.
Yeah, well, they don't teach you this crap in school, man. They don't want you educated.
Educated.
I have to laugh because that's what John says, educated.
Educated.
That's right.
You're grinning.
Older
I
hardware.
remember he said that the other day, so I used the same thing. Why not?
Related somehow. What are you saying, John?
A lot of the newer hardware is all wireless, so you might have to search around to get some non-wireless technology. I believe you can get what's called a switch, which is like basically a hard. I don't want to confuse people, but basically it allows you to plug in more than one thing into one device, like your modem or whatever you're getting your internet through. So it's like a router, but it's not wireless. They're usually called like a port switch, and it may be hard to find routers that aren't wireless now.
I know where to get them. If you guys want them, I mean, I can order them. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, well, awesome. Yeah,
Here's your Christmas package or some shit, eh?
I picked up a few of them at just Value Village and stuff. You know, like I've get them. You don't know if they're going to work or not, but I've got a couple lying around here. I've never paid more than $6 for one, but you got to know what you're looking at. That's the other thing.
Yep.
All right. Well, are we gonna shoot for next Tuesday at the same time, or what's the plan on that? Do you think, Stan?
That was my plan.
Okay. Well, then that's the plan. And then in between that, then I'm gonna put out some just impromptu kind of like, let's get together and do work together type of things. Does that work?
Sounds lovely.
All right. Well, thank you guys. It was great meeting you all. And maybe next time we get here, we'll have some more people with us.
Yes.
Awesome.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, everyone.
Right. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, Stan.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.